China built a casino city that outturns Las Vegas by $40 billion a year. That's not a typo. At its peak, this single territory smaller than San Francisco pulled in over $45 billion in 1 year. You heard that right. Every casino on the Las Vegas Strip combined couldn't come close. But this wasn't luck, and it wasn't just gambling. What China built in Macau was something the world had never seen, a hyper-engineered money machine disguised as a city. And you're about to see exactly how they did it. How Macau got here. You've heard of Vegas. You've seen the movies, the neon, the excess. But there's a city on the other side of the world that looked at Las Vegas and decided to go bigger, much bigger. Macau sits on a tiny peninsula off the southern coast of China, 30 square kilometers of land surrounded by water. For decades, it was a quiet Portuguese colony with a modest gambling scene. Then, in 2002, China cracked open the door and the most powerful casino operators on earth came rushing through. The government ended a 4-decade monopoly and handed out concessions to foreign giants Las Vegas Sands, Wynn, MGM. Almost overnight, billions of dollars in investment began pouring into a city that most people outside Asia had never heard of. But here's what those investors understood that the rest of the world didn't. Macau wasn't just a gambling destination. It was a gateway, a single legal gambling zone sitting on the doorstep of 1.4 billion people, many of them newly wealthy, many of them hungry for exactly this kind of experience. And then the numbers started coming in. By 2006, Macau had already overtaken Las Vegas in gross gaming revenue, not gradually overnight. Within a decade, it wasn't just ahead of Vegas, it was lapping it. The territory was generating revenue that no single city in history had ever produced from gambling alone. At its peak, Macau was pulling in over $45 billion a year, 7 times what Vegas earned in the same period. 7 times. You heard that right. But raw numbers don't tell the full story. What really drove Macau's dominance wasn't just access to Chinese gamblers. It was what these casino operators built to keep them there. The architecture, the engineering, the sheer scale of what was constructed on this tiny strip of reclaimed land. Each property was designed not just to attract visitors, but to trap them inside, a world engineered for spending. And it starts with a casino that proved the entire model was possible. Sands Macau changed everything. Picture this. It's 2004, and a single American billionaire is about to bet his entire fortune on an idea that almost everyone around him thinks is insane. Sheldon Adelson had already built the Venetian in Las Vegas. He'd seen what a mega casino could do on American soil. But now he was proposing to build one in a foreign territory with unfamiliar laws, unpredictable politics, and a customer base that had never experienced anything like what he was planning. His own board pushed back. His advisors warned him. He built it anyway. The Sands Macau opened in May of 2004, the first Las Vegas-style casino ever built in Asia. It wasn't the biggest structure in Macau. It wasn't the most architecturally dramatic. But what it did was something far more important. It proved a theory. It proved that if you dropped a world-class casino resort into this market, the demand would be overwhelming. The result was staggering. The Sands Macau recouped its entire $265 million construction cost in under 1 year. 1 year! For context, most major casino resorts take a decade or longer to pay back their build costs. Adelson's bet didn't just pay off, it paid off faster than any casino in history. Within months of opening, it was the highest-grossing casino on the planet. But here's what made the Sands Macau more than just a financial win. It was a signal. It told every major operator watching from Las Vegas, from Macau, from Hong Kong that this market was unlike anything the world had ever seen. The spending patterns, the volume of players, the appetite for luxury, it was all off the charts. And if a single mid-sized property could do this, what would happen when someone built something truly massive? Every casino operator that came after Sands Macau asked themselves that exact question. And what they built in response changed the skyline of Macau forever, starting with a tower that became the face of the entire city. Grand Lisboa, Macau's icon before the mega casinos of the Cotai Strip, rewrote the face. Skyline. One building stood above everything else in Macau and demanded your attention. The Grand Lisboa is impossible to ignore. Rising nearly 900 feet from the ground, It's shaped like a lotus flower, erupting from a giant egg, a design rooted in Chinese cultural symbolism, engineered to be unmistakable from every angle of the city. At night, it lights up like a beacon. From the harbor, from the ferry terminal, from any rooftop in the city, your eyes go straight to it. SJM Holdings built the Grand Lisboa as a direct response to the foreign operators flooding into Macau after the 2002 liberalization. SJM was the old guard, the company that had held the gambling monopoly for decades. And when Sands, Wynn, and MGM started arriving with billion-dollar blueprints, SJM could have retreated. Instead, they built this. The design wasn't just aesthetic, it was strategic. The lotus and egg shape carries deep meaning in Chinese culture: prosperity, renewal, good fortune. This wasn't a Western casino dropped into an Asian city. This was a structure designed from the ground up to resonate emotionally with the exact audience it was built to attract. And it worked. Inside, the Grand Lisboa is a vertical world of extreme luxury, Michelin-starred restaurants, art collections valued in the hundreds of millions, VIP rooms that operate almost as private clubs, where a single night of play by a single high roller can generate more revenue than a small Vegas casino earns in a week. The VIP baccarat culture that Macau perfected was not invented here, but the Grand Lisboa was one of the first properties to make it feel truly elite, truly exclusive, truly worth traveling across the world for. But beneath the cultural symbolism and the luxury veneer was something else. A psychological design built for retention. Circular layouts, minimal clocks, controlled lighting, every element engineered to make you lose track of time. The Grand Lisboa proved that you didn't need to be foreign to compete. But the foreign operators were just getting started, and what Wynn was about to build would take Macau's definition of luxury to a place no one had anticipated. Wynn's two-property empire. Steve Wynn has one rule: if your resort doesn't feel like the most beautiful place a guest has ever been, you haven't done your job. That philosophy built his reputation in Las Vegas. And when he brought it to Macau, he didn't just replicate what he'd built in Nevada. He designed two separate properties for two separate moods, and together, they became one of the most profitable casino empires in the world. Wynn Macau opened in 2006 on the Macau Peninsula. Where other casinos filled their floors with slot machines and neon, Wynn built garden atriums, performance lakes, and art installations that made you feel like you'd stepped into a private estate. The design was deliberately calm, unhurried, elegant, the kind of space that made wealthy guests want to linger. And lingering in a casino is everything. But then came Wynn Palace, and this is where it got extraordinary. Built on the Cotai Strip and opened in 2016, Wynn Palace raised the stakes in ways that felt almost theatrical. You don't walk into Wynn Palace, you arrive by cable car, gliding over a performance lake surrounded by floral sculptures that change with the seasons. Before you've placed a single bet, you've already been primed. The message is clear: you are somewhere exceptional. That psychological priming is not accidental. Every design decision Wynn makes is calibrated to make high-net-worth guests feel that their wealth is being matched, that this place was built for someone exactly like them. And it works with devastating efficiency. Together, Wynn Macau and Wynn Palace consistently generate among the highest revenue per square foot of any casino properties on Earth. Not because they have the biggest floors or the most tables, but because the guests they attract spend at a level most casinos never see. But Wynn wasn't the only operator playing the two-property game in Macau. MGM was doing the same thing, and their second act on the Cotai Strip was about to make their first property look like a warm-up: MGM's Evolution in Macau. When MGM opened its first Macau property in 2007, it was already impressive. MGM Macau sits on the Macau Peninsula, and its signature feature is the Grande Plaza, a sweeping indoor public space flooded with natural light, lined with luxury retail, designed to feel less like a casino and more like a grand European piazza. It was sophisticated, it was deliberate, and it immediately attracted a clientele looking for something more refined than the typical casino floor experience. But MGM Macau was, in hindsight, a blueprint, a proof of concept, because what MGM was building on the Cotai Strip would make everything that came before it look restrained. MGM Cotai opened in 2018, and it arrived with a statement. The exterior is a dynamic programmable facade, a massive grid of illuminated panels that can shift, animate, and transform the building's entire appearance in real time. At night, the structure doesn't just stand there, it performs. And that performance is the first signal to every guest arriving that what's inside operates on a different level entirely. Inside, the centerpiece is a spectacle theater unlike anything else in Macau. MGM Cotai was built around the idea that entertainment, not just gambling, is a retention tool. If you give guests a reason to stay for a show, they stay for dinner. If they stay for dinner, they return to the floor. Every non-gaming amenity inside MGM Cotai was engineered to extend the visit, and extending the visit is how you increase spend per head. This is the tension that defines MGM's Macau story, a company that arrived with a strong first property, then spent over $3 billion on a second that rewrote the rules of what a casino resort could be. From elegant piazza to living, breathing spectacle machine. But MGM's transformation was just one chapter in the larger story of the Cotai Strip, because two properties were about to arrive that didn't just build a resort. They built an entirely new city within the city. Nice and Paris in Macau. Imagine stepping off a casino floor and into a gondola. Above you, the sky is painted with soft clouds, except it's not the sky. It's a ceiling, engineered to look like an eternal afternoon. No matter what time it actually is outside, you have no idea if it's noon or midnight. And that's exactly the point. The Venetian Macao is the single largest casino floor on Earth. Over 550,000 square feet of gaming space, bigger than any structure Vegas ever built. But the floor is almost secondary to what surrounds it. Indoor canals stretch through the property, staffed by gondoliers in period costume. Replica Venetian architecture lines every corridor. The entire experience is designed to make you forget you're in China, forget you're in a casino, and forget that time is passing at all. Then, right next door, the Parisian Macau took the same concept and pushed it further. A half-scale replica of the Eiffel Tower rises from the property 340 feet of steel, lit up every night, visible from across the strip. Inside, Haussmann-style Parisian boulevards wind through the resort, lined with cafes and boutiques that feel startlingly authentic. Las Vegas Sands built two fantasy cities side by side on reclaimed land, and together they form the most visited casino complex on the planet. But here's what makes both properties genuinely extraordinary from a business standpoint. Neither one relies solely on gambling. The Venetian and the Parisian both generate massive non-gaming revenue through retail, entertainment, dining, and conventions. This was intentional. Las Vegas Sands understood early that the future of Macau wasn't just baccarat tables, it was becoming a destination that justified the trip even if you never placed a bet. The psychological architecture of both properties, the climate control, the engineered lighting, the deliberate removal of any visual cue that connects you to the outside world, keeps guests inside longer than almost any other resort in Macau. And longer stays mean higher spend, every time. But if the Venetian and Parisian owned the fantasy of Europe, one property on the Strip was about to bring something entirely different. A beach, Galaxy's artificial world. You don't expect to find a wave pool inside a casino. You don't expect an artificial beach, a lazy river, or a sprawling outdoor water park sitting in the middle of one of the world's most densely built gambling districts. But Galaxy Macau didn't ask for permission to be unexpected. It just built it. Galaxy Macau is one of the most ambitious integrated resort complexes ever constructed. Phase 1 alone cost over $2 billion. By the time subsequent expansions were complete, the total investment had climbed past $5 billion. The property spans multiple hotel towers, each targeting a different tier of guest unified under one integrated ecosystem that can absorb visitors at every spending level. From the mass market tourist to the ultra-high net worth VIP. The Grand Resort deck sits at the heart of the complex, a rooftop world above the casino floors, featuring a white sand beach, a wave pool large enough to surf, and a sky-high lazy river. It is genuinely surreal. You are inside a building in southern China, and you are on a beach. The sun is artificial, the waves are engineered, and none of that matters, because the experience feels completely real. This is Galaxy's strategic genius. It made the resort itself the destination, not just the casino inside it. Families who might not gamble have a reason to book. Guests who came for the beach end up on the floor. The conversion from visitor to gambler doesn't need to be forced when the property is designed to organically guide you there. Galaxy's multi-tower strategy also allowed it to segment its audience with precision. Luxury brands in one tower, premium mass in another, aspirational in a third. Every tier of guest is catered to, and every tier generates revenue that feeds the overall machine. And the expansion hasn't stopped. Galaxy's ongoing development signals something important. This company believes Macau still has room to grow, that the market hasn't hit its ceiling, that there are still billions of dollars left to capture. But while Galaxy was building beaches, two other properties were doing something even more radical, turning the buildings themselves into the attraction. Architecture. As the product, most casino resorts use architecture to impress you on arrival, then funnel you inside as quickly as possible. Studio City Macau had a different idea. What if the building itself was so extraordinary that people came specifically to see it, and the casino was just what happened to be inside? Studio City opened in 2015 with a feature that had never been built before anywhere in the world. Suspended between two golden towers 800 feet above the ground is a figure-8 Ferris wheel, not mounted on the ground, not on a rooftop. Suspended in the open air between two skyscrapers, connected to both structures at its access points. From a pure engineering standpoint, it should not exist. The lateral forces involved, the structural demands on both towers, the wind load calculations at that altitude, every element of it required solutions that had never been attempted before. But Melco built it anyway, because in Macau, the spectacle is the marketing. You don't need a billboard when your building is visible from across the Pearl River Delta. Then there's Morpheus. Designed by Zaha Hadid and completed in 2018, Morpheus is arguably the most structurally radical hotel ever built. The exterior is a free-form exoskeleton, a continuous steel lattice that wraps around the building like a living organism, transferring structural loads through curves and voids rather than conventional columns. Inside those voids, glass-enclosed sky bridges and atrium spaces hang in midair. There are no interior columns. The entire structural system lives on the outside. It cost over $1 billion to build a hotel with 272 rooms. That's roughly $3.7 million per room. And it was worth every cent. Because Morpheus didn't just attract guests, it attracted global attention. Architecture journalists, engineers, tourists who had no intention of gambling, all drawn to a building that functioned as living proof of what money and ambition could produce. Both Studio City and Morpheus made the same argument that in Macau, the building is not the container for the product. The building is the product. And when you look at the revenue these properties generate relative to what they cost to build, that argument becomes impossible to dispute. Why this city prints money. Now that you've seen the properties, you need to understand the engine underneath all of them. Because Macau's dominance isn't just about beautiful buildings and wealthy tourists. It's about a financial model that is almost perfectly optimized for maximum extraction. And once you see it clearly, the numbers stop being surprising and start being inevitable. Start with baccarat. In Las Vegas, the casino floor is a mix of slot machines, poker, blackjack, roulette revenue spread across dozens of game types. In Macau, baccarat accounts for roughly 80% of all gaming revenue. It's a simple game. It moves fast, and the house edge while relatively small compounds at extraordinary speed when the bets are large enough. A single VIP baccarat table in Macau can generate more revenue in one night than some entire Las Vegas casinos earn in a week. The VIP segment, driven by junket operators who brought ultra-wealthy mainland Chinese gamblers directly to the tables, was for years the dominant revenue driver across the entire territory. A single high roller visit one guest, one weekend, could represent millions of dollars in gross gaming revenue. The properties you just walked through were not built for the average tourist. They were built to make the wealthiest gamblers on Earth feel that nowhere else on the planet was worth their time. But the mass market segment is where the volume lives. And Macau's integrated resorts with their hotels, restaurants, entertainment, retail, and experiences are engineered to monetize every type of visitor at every price point. You don't need to be a high roller to contribute to the machine. You just need to be inside it. The cost-to-build ratios are staggering, but so are the returns. The Venetian Macao cost roughly $2.4 billion to construct and has generated multiples of that figure in annual revenue. The Parisian, the Wynn properties, Galaxy, all of them operating at revenue levels that would be considered impossible in any other market on Earth. The blueprint behind everything. Here's what Macau actually proves: that revenue at this scale is never an accident. Not even close. Every single property you've just walked through was a calculated decision made by people who understood something fundamental. If you build the right environment, the money follows. Every canal, every suspended Ferris wheel, every artificial beach, every climate-controlled corridor with no windows and no clocks, none of it was aesthetic. All of it was engineering. Human behavioral engineering, executed at a scale the world had never seen before. Macau had three things simultaneously that no other city on Earth could replicate. It had legal gambling in a region where virtually no alternatives existed for hundreds of millions of people. It had direct proximity to the largest and fastest-growing population of wealthy consumers in human history. And it had operators Adelson, Wynn, MGM, Galaxy, Melco with the capital, the vision, and the competitive ruthlessness to build the most psychologically sophisticated spending environments ever constructed. Take away any one of those three ingredients, and the machine doesn't work. Together, they created something unstoppable. The architecture wasn't decoration, it was strategy. The Venetian's painted sky ceiling wasn't beautiful for the sake of being beautiful. It was beautiful because disconnecting you from the natural rhythm of day and night is worth billions of dollars in extended playtime. The Wynn Palace cable car arrival wasn't theatrical for its own sake. It was theatrical because guests who feel like they've arrived somewhere extraordinary spend more than guests who simply walk through a door. Every design decision across every property was a spending decision in disguise. The luxury wasn't hospitality, it was psychology. The entertainment wasn't a side offering, it was a retention mechanism. And the retention mechanism worked with a precision that Wall Street analysts are still struggling to fully model. What's almost impossible to absorb is the raw geographic reality underneath all of this. A territory of roughly 33 square kilometers, about half the size of Manhattan, generated more gambling revenue than the entire United States at its peak, not just the Las Vegas Strip. The entire country, every tribal casino, every riverboat, every card room from Atlantic City to Los Angeles, Macau out-earned all of it combined. From a patch of land you could drive across in 15 minutes. The operators who built here didn't find a gold mine, they designed one. They took extreme architecture, engineered luxury, and unprecedented market access, and they fused them into a single hyper-optimized ecosystem that has never been matched anywhere on Earth and almost certainly never will be. Macau doesn't earn $40 billion a year more than Las Vegas because it got lucky. It earns it because every single square foot of it was built to do exactly that.